Welcome to the August 30th meeting of the Rotary Club of South Jacksonville. It's a great day to be a member of Rotary. We ask that you silence your phone and conversations if you're attending on Zoom. We welcome you also and ask that you mute yourself. My thanks to Mike Dara for welcoming our guests today, and I'd like to invite Martha Barrett up for a pledge and prayer.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Every time I'm asked to do this, I always give the prayer of St. Francis, which I think is the prettiest prayer of them all. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is offense, let me pardon. Where there is discord, let me bring union. Where there is error, let me bring truth. Where there is doubt, let me bring faith. Where there is despair, let me bring hope. Where there is darkness, let me bring your light. Where there is sadness, let me bring joy. Oh, Master, let me not seek as much soul as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that one receives. It is in self-forgetting that one finds. It is in pardoning that one is pardoned. And it is in dying that one is raised to eternal life. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Martha. I'm now going to call upon Chris Roberts to introduce our guests and visiting Rotarians.
Now they turn these. All right, today it looks like we have guests from two different members. Charlie.
Right. I have Deanna Cumber here today. Most of you are neighbors with Deanna. She lives here in San Marcos. Long-time, strong family here. Good friend. Okay.
And also Julia.
Thank you. We have a few guests with me today. I'm very honored to introduce Marianne Thomas and Jen Stockman. Marianne is a visiting Rotarian and Jen's a dear friend of mine. They are both with Ascension. And I'm honored to introduce Tim Corrigan. He doesn't need a lot of introduction. And then Brian Corrigan, a good friend of mine as well. And then last but not least, my significant other, Matthew Kalinski. It up.
All right. So, Katie, Michael, all right. So I guess I did a great job.
Lisa Marie will help us.
Yeah.
And so will Bill. Bill.
No.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you gotta do it. You got it. We got trust.
We here in Rotary welcome you today. So glad you came along, glad you came our way. Our hand of fellowship is yours, in sunshine or in rain. We here in Rotary say welcome, come again.
Michael, don't go far. I know you've got the family of Rotary presentation today. Just don't have children do double.
No. So somebody reneged on her promise to do the family of Rotary today, but I'm not going to say Julia's name. So we do have one. I'll start with a sad note and then end up with the happier stuff. Roger Painter was 87. He was a member of this club for a long time. He was the son of George and Dorothy, and he passed away August 24th. He was a member of South Jackson, was a Paul Harris Fellow. In lieu of flowers, donations can be made to Mayo Clinic. Funeral services are being held at 10 a.m. today. And the chapel, sorry, you missed George H. Huell and Son Funeral Home. Reverend Emily Knight of Riverside Park United Methodist Church is officiating, and burial will follow in Oklahoma. So for those of you who knew, he was here a long time ago. So birthdays today, Bill Troyer, I think, is up in North Carolina. Randy Gordon, not here today. George Armstrong is here today. And George, where are you? George, show him, just hold up your badge. George's badge is from 39 years ago. Can anybody beat that one? There's the other one that I think can beat that one. And when was the club founded, Barry? 55?
I noticed mine is an old English.
Yeah. Tom Ranney, birthday on September the 8th. And William Harrell, September the 9th. And we got Bill Jaycock, September the 10th. And Erin Perry, her birthday is September 12th. So let's see, years of service. Mary Alice Phelan, I don't know, did we cover that last week? Mary Alice has got 30 years, Mary Alice. Awesome. And I should have started off, past President David Bissell has 21, and then past President Jay Plotkin has 23. So here are the ones you need to really listen up on, okay? Wedding anniversaries, we've got 2 of them, and Richard Dow is not here because he is celebrating his anniversary right now. Jay Plotkin, yours is September 8th. We're giving you advance notice, so don't mess up. Okay?
I remember because it was Steve Spurrier's first game as coach of the
Oh, you are really in for it. All right, so that's it, folks. Family of Rotary.
Let's hope somebody's not watching on Zoom. Anyway, all right. A couple of special announcements for the day, upcoming club events, and as always, please make a habit of reviewing DAC-PB, the calendar there regularly to learn about upcoming meetings, speakers, and social events. I'd like to recognize Lisa Marie to talk about an initiative from a membership committee that should be a lot of fun.
President Charlie. The membership committee had their first meeting this couple weeks ago, and some great ideas were presented. And one of them is increasing our female representation in Rotary, not just in our club, but throughout Rotary. We're going to hold a ladies' night out. And our ladies' night out is going to be September 22nd at Wick, a candle place. Now, gentlemen, you are invited, but please make sure that you bring a lady with you, okay? And it cannot be a wife, it cannot be a daughter, sister. It needs to be somebody that you. It needs to be somebody who you think would be interested in Rotary, whether it be our club or Rotary as a whole here in our district. So September 22nd, Wick, a candle company in San Marco. There will be beverages, light hors d'oeuvres, and I understand we will have a guest bartender. And he will be male, just wanted to point that out. So we'll keep it PG-13, no stripping. And just real quick, I just wanted to let y'all know that we are really close for our fundraiser next year about securing a location and securing the caterers for that event, and then we'll start planning. So anybody who served on the committee last year that's interested in this year, would love to chat with you, as well as anybody who didn't serve who would like to serve. We would love to have additions to the committee for planning the event. Thank you.
Somehow the word got out that I worked as a bartender at Bowling Air Force Base Officers Club between undergraduate school and law school. I don't know where that happened. Anyway, Jaguars. It's a fun time to be a Jaguar fan. We're on the rise. Anyway, Rotary is sponsoring a ticket drive to attend one of the 3 specified Jaguar games. There's a handout on your tables about the event. Rotary Foundation gets funds back for those from ticket sales. There are 3 games. First, November 6th, Jaguars versus Raiders. That always brings an interesting visitors crowd. Second game would be Jaguars versus Ravens. That will be a very difficult game. Third game was in January, Jaguar versus Titans. It's my guess that we will be vying for a playoff spot in that game. Don't laugh, don't laugh. I'll be the first to say it. Anyway, the thought is that the club as a whole should maybe decide upon which of the games to focus on so we can come as a group. If we get enough people, I'll try to host a tailgate party in Lot P, which is very close to the stadium. So just take a look at that and we'll try to take a vote focusing on which game the people in the club would like to attend. Because we've got a pretty hefty calendar day, I've asked Harlan to defer our next Paul Harris moment till.
He would understand Paul on this.
Yeah.
Paul would understand.
But,
Struggle with it a little bit.
Yeah.
so anyway, so it's time for fun time. I think we have a 50-50 raffle. Lisa, do that.
Perfect timing.
There you go.
Okay, so to clarify, this is a gift raffle, not a 50-50. So nobody's getting any cash, but you are receiving a valuable gift. If you didn't hear the spiel, oh, thank you. We have a lovely Vera Bradley beverage tote for beverages of your choice. We have a bottle of Chard, a bottle of Cab, and a beautiful beer opener hockey stick from the original season of the Iceman. As many of you know, I'm a big fan. So that is the gift. And I can assure you that the $10 that you may have spent on free tickets, this value far exceeds that. So actually, I'm going to have one of our guests pick the tickets so nobody thinks that I am doing any funny business here. At least for not today. All the tickets are there. Let me shake all the money out. All right, I'm gonna do the honors for us. All right, ticket number 556972.
Right here.
Woo!
Way good, Matt.
Yeah. See outside.
There you go. Thank you, sir.
That's gonna look just darling.
You can wear that.
Anniversary
for
gift.
candlelight.
Anniversary gift here.
It'd be great for the tailgate that Charlie's gonna be hosting.
And just remember, for future raffles, you can't win if you don't buy a ticket. So thank you very much. It's all for charity. One of the things you all might remember from when Lisa Reineman was here was talking about various opportunities to be engaged in river cleanups. She mentioned about September 17th. It's a Saturday morning. I have gone on DAC TV and put some information about that opportunity. If you would take a look at it, there's a place over near Lackawanna that we're meeting. It's a park just to spend a couple of hours cleaning up that portion of McCoy's Creek. It's a great opportunity. So hope to see some of you folks out there. So let me look. Okay. All right. This time, let me recognize Les Loggins to introduce our speaker.
All right, Les.
I am very proud to introduce today's speaker, our own Julia Kalinski, even though she doesn't need an introduction. In my opinion, Julia is a Rotary superstar. She lives and follows the Rotary four-way test every day through her service in the community with work such as with annual kids, her involvement in our Rotary Club, and her relentless service in helping the people of her homeland and the Ukraine. With all of this, she works as the director of alumni engagement at the Bowl School, She has recently been honored as an outstanding 40 under 40 by the Jacksonville Business Journal. And she has been recognized by Rotary clubs all over the district for her talks about the Ukrainian war, which she will do today. Let's have a warm welcome for our very own Julie.
Very kind and generous introduction. I heard a saying recently, and I really loved it. It said, "Shine your light and watch the ripples." And I consider myself a ripple of so much light in my life. And what I'm going to share with you today is a combination of personal and just a real experience with the Soviet Union, with Ukraine, and with how the people live in that environment. And I just hope that just shows you just a little glimpse of what people are going through right now. I did add some visual aids. I have spoken about this in the past, but what we're doing today is new to me. So there's a few added things just to make things a little bit more real. So my name is Julia Sokolenko Kalinski. I was born in Kiev, Ukraine, which was part of the Soviet Union. My first language is Russian. I was raised in Kiev, in independent Ukraine. My second language is Ukrainian. And I've been a proud English-speaking American citizen since 1999. Very proud of that. I was adopted as a teen, but like many girls, I grew up admiring my mother. She was a trailblazer. She went to medical school when it was not a very popular thing for women to do in the former Soviet Union in Azerbaijan. Her parents, both World War II veterans, they supported her and pushed her and believed she could do anything. This here is my sister and I. I really wanted to go to first grade with her in that picture, so I was not very happy. So that's probably the only like real picture I have of that time period. So yeah, excuse that. But so in May of 1986, despite the assurance from the Soviet government that the Chernobyl incident was just not a big deal, my mother, who was a neurologist, chose to put her 11-month-old child on an airplane back to Baku, Azerbaijan, to live with her grandparents. When radiation was discussed in school, she paid attention. I lived in Baku for about 5 years on the banks of the Caspian Sea. I don't remember much, but I was safe, and I've always remained drawn to the ocean. So that is my mom and the two of us. I returned to Kiev and joined the rest of my family in 1991, just in time to see the Iron Curtain fall and witness my country change currencies 3 different times. Ukraine became the national language overnight. However, we all spoke Russian at home, as that was our native tongue. We had a small home outside the country. We called it the dacha. There was no running water, an outhouse, lots of goats and chickens. We would spend 3 months out of the year there with my grandma. And those were some of the most amazing memories of my life, was being outside in the country. Some of my neighbors did live there year round, like this lady here. She was our direct neighbor and she had goats and chickens. My resources were still pretty scarce at the time. So my parents actually gathered fruits and vegetables and pickled them and stored them for the winter in the city. The train stop for my dacha is the town of Bordanka. And unfortunately, it is on the way to the capital and it has now been reduced to rubble. After the fall of the Soviet Union, my family was issued an apartment due to my grandmother's World War II status. I watched as my mom tended to victims of the Chernobyl disaster and educated visiting physicians coming from Florida Hospital in Orlando. Through my mother's relationships and my sister got to participate in Rotary Youth Exchange. This right here is my first Rotary meeting in Orlando. And I did not participate in the program. I was too young, but I did come to America for a year to study English at the time. So from this picture, you can see that iced tea and wine have always been part of our traditions here. So during the year visiting America, my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer. Unfortunately, the same American physicians raised funds for her to get treated here in the States, giving her an additional 2 years of life. She is wearing her favorite wig there. During my mother's final days, at 13 years of age, I flew back from Ukraine to Orlando in hopes of making it to say goodbye to my mom. Those hopes unfortunately were shattered when I learned that she passed away about 6 hours while my plane was in the air. I remember walking out of the airplane and seeing my sister and in the gate area. She didn't have to say anything, we just kind of sat in the corner and watched normal life pass us by. Before I boarded that plane in Kiev, I had a last conversation with my mom, and she made it clear that she wanted me to grow up in the land of boundless opportunity, which is the United States. In 1999, that wish came true when I was adopted as a 13-year-old girl. My parents gave me a great education and believed I could do anything that I put my mind to. My adoptive parents honored my history and past, and they visited Kiev with me several times. Each trip, I took 2 suitcases to go back home, one with my clothes and one with lots of American stuff. Things like peanut butter and Bath and Body Works things, Mickey Mouse, all of those things are very unique in our country. As soon as I would walk in the door of my apartment, which is right there, I could smell the feast that my grandmother would be making for days before that. She got out the best china from underneath the glass and would present the best of the best of what she had, which wasn't a lot, but making food for her family was one of the most cherished traditions of her life. She also would save up every penny of her pension, and in order to pay for my plane ticket. It was about $200 a month. I would take that money and I would put it into an account for her care. She did not know about that. The past 7 months or so have been truly excruciating to watch from the comfort of my American dream. The feelings of anger, helplessness, and gratitude for my children kind of fight for space in my mind. I now have 2 girls of my own. They're 2 and 4 years old. I have many loved ones in Kiev still. I keep up with them. I can tell you with absolute certainty that the lives they were living from 1991 until February 24th of this year were very different from the Soviet Union. Friends with no government connections and no status were able to open small businesses, start their own ventures. They were able to make something for themselves. My best friend was actually able to visit me in Florida in 2014, and that was an amazing time. The middle class was truly rising. Was it perfect? Was there corruption? Absolutely. But the difference in everyday life was very evident to those who knew how it was before. So seeing a headline that the last independent news station in the Russian Federation had their last broadcast kind of gave me chills. That probably as much as knowing about the missile that struck next to my cousin's house. The Russian people are going back in time. It's very sad. The future their government is seeking is truly the past, and there is no freedom in it. There's just silence. Ukraine's fighting for freedom. It's that simple. Most of us have not experienced the Soviet Union. I have, and it's honestly, if I could describe it in one word, it would be lonely. Access to simple things like modern medicine and technology didn't really happen for me until the 1990s. We were the first people in my building to get a VCR in 1993. I had a not ethically sourced Fox and Hound tape that was played there. I remember that distinctly because no one else in the building had that. One of my favorite memories was just getting to see a Barbie doll through a store window. Barbies were, the price of them would equal about a month's salary of my mother, who was a physician. These may seem like silly things, but they were truly my reality growing up as a child. And that's just the simple truth that I saw. Today, I stand with the leaders who keep showing up for the Ukrainian people. I also stand with my best friend, Lita, who you'll see right there, sitting at a restaurant in Miami when she came to visit me. She works for an international accounting firm. She's very smart, and she works from home, and she reports to colleagues in the Russian Federation in between the air raid sirens running up and down the stairs of her 16-story building. I stand with my cousin, who's now, my two cousins who now reside in the UAE and Germany and are rebuilding their lives in their 30s. I also stand with my uncle Oleg and Aunt Irina, who spent 23 days in the basement of their private home in Irpin, which was the only thing standing in between the Russians and Kiev. They had no electricity, running water, or anything really, and they were hit with shrapnel. They are now back. They've rebuilt their roof, and they're helping others in the area who completely lost their homes rebuild. I share my story because I want to emphasize the power of action where you are with what you have. The tragedy Ukraine is facing is overwhelming, and sometimes I kind of get stuck and like, well, what can I do? What, I'm one person. And then I kind of go back and break down my own experience and my own life. The Rotarian in Orlando did not have to connect my sister with the Rotary Youth Exchange. The doctor who had a trip to witness the devastating effects of Chernobyl didn't have to raise funds to get my mother to treatment, but they did. Ron Carolian did not have to adopt a 13-year-old girl with a lot of trauma, but they did. Small steps make a truly tremendous impact. And imagine a world where each person chose to act when presented with an opportunity. That's it.
Question, let me start out. How is your family?
They're well. They're living in a war zone, but they're okay. They're safe. They're being very resilient in the different places that they are in Germany and the UAE. People have been very receptive and very supportive of them and kind of building that for them. So my father's still in Kiev. He's not going to go anywhere. My aunt and uncle are not going to go anywhere. So they're getting by. They have hope. They're excited about the counteroffensive and the possibility of movement in that direction. So there's definitely, they remain very hopeful. I talked to Lita for a long time yesterday, and she's, they're preparing. She bought a parking space in the garage of her building just for the winter in case there's sirens, that they have a safe place to be in their car, when that's happening in their building. So they're making provisions that nobody should be making, but they are, and they're doing well.
Do you have a good means of communicating with them?
Yeah, we speak mostly through Facebook Messenger and WhatsApp. Those are both open. So the communication with Ukraine is very open. There's no barriers there.
Other questions?
Yes.
First of all, thank you for that.
Sure.
23 years of Rotary, that's really more powerful. Also, so thank you. I've asked a couple of people this question because it's fascinating and saddening at the same time. And you keep hearing these stories of Ukrainians with Russian relatives, and like the Ukrainians sitting there and they're on the phone and they're talking to a relative in Moscow and talking about there's a bomb overhead. And the person in Moscow says they're lying. Yeah. I'm wondering if you've had any of those kind of experiences in your family or any insight into that situation.
When you become, and that's why I say it's very lonely, because when you're isolated and when you truly get fed the same message on every aspect of your life, you begin to believe it. So I think that's what's happening in the Russian Federation. And I think part of it is maybe self-preservation, because they do have family there. They do have ties there. They can't just leave if they don't agree with it. So they're choosing to believe certain things just to protect their family because they know the repercussions are so negative. So that's definitely happening, and there's no way. I think there's a collaboration that Ed Sheeran did with one of the bands in Ukraine, and he made a music video, and I think things like that, where like Arnold Schwarzenegger or really popular TV stars will come out and speak. Like, I think that will get through to the Russian community for, faster than government or, like direct channels, because they respect those people and they will find a way to hear them, even through the firewalls or whatever. They're very smart. They know how to hack anything, but I think it's a form of self-preservation. I do, fortunately. Very.
Julia, what do people in Ukraine feel the ultimate outcome of this war is going to be? And I realize that there's going to be a range in there, but how would you characterize expectations?
They're very passionate about, maintaining sovereignty and independence. And the more this moves forward, the more passionate they become about not conceding territory. And all of that is very, very important to them. So I think they believe and hope that through, all of this aid and all of the support militarily that they're receiving, they will be able to stand and push them out and maintain their sovereignty. So I think that's all I hear from people I talk to. Yeah.
Has there been any Rotary impact?
The one that I'm aware of is actually our district participated in a partnership to get a fire truck to Kharkiv, I believe, and they just delivered that about a week ago. So they had to get with Switzerland and like one other country and kind of work around. You can't just send any fire truck. You have to send one that has very like minimal maintenance requirements. So they had to find this specific like machine and pay for it a certain way and then ship it down. So that was a really cool effort. And they had the picture of the fire truck there and it's doing good. And then the other big effort by the Rotary Club of Lviv was first aid kits. So they're still doing that. They're collecting medical supplies and stuffing them there on site and then distributing first aid kits to various points of need. So those are the specifics. I know Rotary's raised $15 million. So I think it's being deployed in waves per need. But they're being very diligent about where it goes and how it's distributed. So yeah. Mike.
So that brings brought up to something that my wife and I talked about. We had given some money early on and we realized that always people start slacking off after probably a couple of 3 months. But 2 weeks ago, I remember you talked, and it was at the district, we talked about making donations through the York Fund on the district. Is that still the biggest way? It's a 501c3.
I think specifically through Rotary, yes, from my understanding, but I know that they're doing partnerships through the grants through specific clubs. So that's also, I believe, an option where clubs partner with Lviv or with specific clubs within the country where they can do that, like the fire truck. That was a big effort on the district level, on the club level, on the, they kind of all pitched in and figured it out.
Yeah, that one I think was working with the club and and a whole bunch of our clubs and other things.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah. Ron.
So I'm curious, what do you think is the perception of the Ukrainian people of us, of the United States and our allies? I'm sure they're very appreciative of the financial assistance, but at the same time, I could see how they might be frustrated that we've taken the stance not to put boots on the ground and provide more direct military assistance. But how do you feel the general consensus is about the perception of the United States and our allies in Ukraine?
It's honestly, it's very positive. I think that when this all kind of started, I think the bureaucratic machine took a little bit to warm up with when things would be delivered. But now that we've got a handle on it, I think there was some, we should be getting more faster and all of that. But I believe that now it's very much just gratitude and the HIMARS, I watch memes on that every day on my feed from the Ukrainians about how much that's helping on the ground. And so all I'm hearing is very positive feedback for the United States specifically. There's some things with Europe that, they're unsure of, but
but they're very grateful for the support. Crystal?
Yeah, I understand there's been a number of Ukrainian refugees that have come to the United States, some in Jacksonville, and the San Marco Rotary Club has been helping out with one specific family. If this club wanted to help out with any of the families that have moved here, how would they do that?
I believe that there's sponsorship opportunities. I don't know on the club level how that works specifically. Like the form that you have to fill out is pretty extensive to sponsor a family. But I think there's a church in town also that's taken in a lot of different refugee families. So there's tons of opportunities. I mean, if we wanted to do that, there's definitely a way to do it through local organizations. And that, yes, that's happening, and it's wonderful. I actually stumbled upon a Ukrainian festival this past weekend in Mandarin. I didn't know about it until the hour before. It was really cool. It was, yeah, there's definitely a big community here now.
Any of your family that's still in Ukraine, have they mentioned any scarcities or supply shortages or certain things?
Some, I think as a people, we're used to scarcities of supply shortages. So it's kind of, they adapt very well. Like one of the things I always say, I cook a lot and I can pretty much make something out of anything that I have in the house just because, oh, you don't have that. All right, figure it out. So there is some of that, but they're pretty focused on just safety. And if they're not being shelled or if there's not air raid sirens, they're pretty happy. But food, there's, food supplies are good. There's something, maybe not every kind of something, but I think they're in the capital. Now, I don't know, the other regions are definitely struggling much worse, but the capital is pretty well protected at this point, which is, yeah. Yeah.
Julia, can you take us back in time, months or years, and give us your best guess as to why this is happening? I mean, when I think about World War II history, I think of Russia's in the Cold War, their need for a warm water port, and there was like military advantages for that sort of thing. But
It's
why this and why now?
Control and nostalgia of there's a lot of people that like to live in the past in the former Soviet Union because it seems like it was better back then, and no one really remembers that it was better, or there's just this idealism of we were all together and we were all connected and we all had it great. So I think that there's enough in the population of that generation that it still feels that way, that's feeding into an insane man. So I think it's just that combination, and I think it's just a loss of control in the movement towards a totally different ideology by the country that's bordering you and that you thought was completely under your control. So I think there's just a combination of those two factors, and they really have moved towards democracy and have made some pretty bold statements and moves away from the ideal machine of the Soviet era. So yeah.
Julia, a little bit of I guess that's a good lead into a kind of a question that I had, and that's, what does the Soviet Union have to gain by taking over the Ukraine? Is it, are there natural resources they're after, or what is it that they're after?
Yes, absolutely. Natural resources, control, yes, the natural resources in Ukraine, from my understanding, are very vast, and the loss of that is the breadbasket of Europe is kind of the nickname for it. So the loss of that country for Russian control would be devastating for Putin. So I think that's the main motivating factor is the resources, and just the idea that Ukraine's always been a part, he's never respected or recognized that they're an independent state. Yeah, as an individual, and the more they move away and kind of show how they are, the more that exacerbated that idea.
Speaking of breadbasket, I know there was a lot made a couple of weeks ago when the first grain ships were allowed to to leave and navigate through the waters there. I know Turkey had to buy into that and so forth, but then it goes away. Do we assume that those grain shipments are still proceeding on a reasonable basis?
We hope so. I don't know the geopolitical, moves there, and everyone has their own interests there, but I hope so for the world's sake, because those things are going to people that really need it. So, yeah.
Just kind of piggybacking on some of the more geopolitical questions pertaining to NATO. I know that Ukraine was in some form of, applying to be a part of NATO or in the process of becoming a member of NATO. Is that still an interest that you've heard from Ukraine? Is NATO interested in Ukraine joining?
It's a very long process from what I understand, and there's a lot of different factors that go into that. So I believe, yes, Ukraine wants to be a part of NATO. I think there's, just like not putting boots on the ground, the United States has to consider some things on their end as well. So yes, I think that's the goal. And if we get to a point where they can make that decision, I hope that they do.
So I don't think I really fully understood the impact of the Crimea. And I know that played greatly into this, but from the press that we got, it just seemed like they said, "Oh, we want to be part of Russia," and I didn't know if you had any view into that, or ultimately what happens with the Crimea.
The whole puppet government idea is very real. So I don't know the inner workings of the Crimean government at the time that happened, but I think the lack of response from the world to that was a huge indicator of kind of why we are where we are now. So and not just the United States. I mean, Europe, just everyone's kind of like, oh, okay, that's fine. And so I think that was just another nudge towards, okay, we can do this direction. But Crimea, I've been to Crimea. Crimea is an incredible place. I don't believe that there was discrimination with Russian speaking. Like, I've always spoken Russian in Ukraine. I've never had any issues with that. So all of that is just a facade for annexing a sovereign nation. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
You're going to get 2 recognition gifts today. First of all, a 4-way test coin, keep it with you, and also a rotary coolie to be used when Ukraine prevails. All right. Just a couple reminders. The social will be on September 22nd at WIC. There will not be an additional member charge for that because we're basically going to be consuming things left over from a prior event in the club. But please, the focus is to try to bring females who, as your guests, who are interested or prospective Rotary members. We will keep working on different avenues to try to increase membership, not only of this club, but district-wide, because it's a huge focus this year.
President Charlie, just one more thing. Space is limited. I think we're limited to 24 attendees. And I know we already have 6 RSVPs, and then including President Charlie and I, it's 8. So get them while they're hot.
And it's a good opportunity. I know the owner of WIC. He's a good friend of mine, and he'll do a little demonstration about what they do, and you may want to come back socially. It should be a fun evening. Give some thought on whether we want to focus on a particular Jaguar game, and we'll try to take an informal vote at our next meeting. Just a reminder that there will not be a luncheon meeting next week due to Labor Day. Typically, we're down on that day. Our next luncheon meeting will be on September 13th, when we'll welcome District Governor Jeff Michaelman to our club. Jeff is a great Rotarian, and a great speaker, so I hope for a good turnout that day. Start coming your friendships and business relationships for the member initiatives for this year. And also our next quarterly social will be on October 4th. I think it's still a to be decided place, so keep that in mind. As we end our meeting, if you please stand and join me in our four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. First,
Is it the truth?
second,
Is it fair to all concerned?
third,
Will it build goodwill and better friendships?
and fourth,
Will it be beneficial to all concerned?